I guess we're going to talk with Lexi about the significant meaning behind this experience that females go through in life. If you're a female, how to use that to empower yourself. If you're a male, how to
Mhm.
be a good person and actually get along better with females. And so
Mhm.
I guess for starters, Lexi, before we get into the nuts and bolts, what percentage of people, males and females, do you think really have any idea about a deeper understanding of the female cycle?
I would say very, very few. I don't know the exact number of the general population, but for people who menstruate, 40% of people when they start menstruate don't even know what's happening to them when they first get their period. So that's almost half. And when I do workshops, I would say I have maybe one person in each workshop that actually knows the phases of their cycle. It's very rare. So every once in a while, I have them, and then sometimes I'll have more, but that's because people have been to my previous workshops. So we live in a period of extreme body illiteracy, and it's not an accident. And it's extremely relevant for the regenerative conversation because in order to understand how um, or to understand how our cycle works is to understand regeneration of human life, right? And this wisdom is at the core of our sovereign power as humans. And so it's not like, oh, they just forgot to teach us this thing. It was very intentionally wisdom that has been taken away. It's been taken away beginning with the switch from matriarchy over to patriarchy. And then it went really full throttle during the witch burnings where they were literally killing people with this information, right? So this wisdom, it's kind of like I'm sure as you are aware, as you take away people's knowledge and ability to grow their own food, and they become dependent on a power outside of them for their authority. In the similar way, when we don't know how this works, we become dependent on medical systems, healers, and things outside of us, and spiritual understandings outside of us in order to be able to survive in the world, right? Um, this disconnection we are disconnected from our very own body. It's like hidden in plain sight, right? Like it's right here. My womb is right here, and I wasn't even till I was in my 30s. As somebody who is a huge feminist, a huge advocate for womb care, somebody who does menstrual cycle work, and has always kind of been obsessed with this subject, it wasn't even until my 30s that I even saw a live birth, like that I actually saw a baby being born out of a vagina, right? It's like the first time I ever even saw that. So the illiteracy of our bodies, how magical they are, how they work, it really serves a an intentional purpose for for being able to exploit our bodies and as a system the same way the earth is often exploited, right? And instead of being able to tap into a regenerative system that's maybe less profitable but is more regenerative and healthy for our bodies, minds, and spirits.
Wow. Wow. We're talking with Lexi, aka the Cycle Witch. You can find her at the Cycle Witch on Instagram and thecyclewitch.com. Um, it sounds like you just brought something up which is going far beyond just the cycles that you've deconstructed, that there's four phases, what to do during each phase. But it's way beyond that. You're
Mm-hmm.
talking about the divine feminine energy and things that have been kind of suppressed in history. If you look at the how the Catholic Church took over the writings and made them all patriarchal, and they took stuff out. And so,
Yeah.
what do you when someone asks you when you're in Costa Rica or you're in the U.S. or wherever you are, and someone asks you, Lexi, what do you do? What do you do? How do you even respond to that? How do you describe what you do?
That's such a good question. Because it's different with every person I talk to, it depends. So the basic answer that I give people if they're not in this, if they're not already aware of my work or familiar with it, and if they're also unfamiliar with alternative healing modalities, if they're not like deep in alternative healing, well, alternative, like what does that even mean? Non-Western medical science healing alternate like healing paradigms, if they're not engrossed in those, then I will usually just say I do menstrual cycle awareness and education to kind of like get their feet wet. But so that's the one extreme. The other extreme is this is where your um, disclaimer is your family friendly disclaimer. It starts as, on the other end, I tell people I'm recultivating cunt worship as our original spirituality. So there's like the two kind of extremes of the way that I will express to people. There's ways where I, allow them in a way that's accessible to them and their experience. And then there's the other extreme where we're really flipping the paradigm of uniting the divine masculine work in the patriarchy and then the divine feminine work of the matriarchy that's been suppressed, and kind of unifying those into creating kind of what I call a commiarchy, which is that next wave of balance between the two, where we can find that middle ground for regeneration, for understanding of the energy of our bodies, for moving towards a paradigm of sovereign spirituality that is centered in um, the truth of what I tell my clients is, the truth of our cunts, the truth of our womb. What is actually birthing out of us, because the womb is a portal to the quantum field. It pulls in energy from the quantum and it creates it into form, right? So there is this like portal between the spirit world and the physical world there. And so there is very much a spiritual understanding that is lost in humanity as a whole, no matter what your gender is. And so to call it menstrual cycle awareness, it's like the tip of the iceberg, but sometimes the tip of the iceberg is all that's palpable for people at first. And what I always say is, it's funny because people come into my world to like heal period cramps, and they end up leaving, becoming leaders of an entire shift of humanity's consciousness into a paradigm that incorporates ancient wisdom and knowledge and reforms our current system into something where into the new paradigm that we're headed into, that people are awakening into, and the importance of it. So
And
yeah, so it's hard to explain. What do? I do witchcraft, I do dance, I do earth reverence, and so those are the main three modalities that we use: is cycle worship, earth reverence, and dance and or somatic devotion. So it's a return to yin respect and worship, so of cycles, of flesh, of earth, right? Because the patriarchal paradigm is very much ascending out of to look for power outside of self, ascending out of the human experience and to something higher or something better, whereas the matriarchal feminine spirituality descends into the earth, into the flesh, into the human experience as something just as sacred and holy as that of like the spiritual ascending into the astral realms. Excuse me.
wow, and you're saying that to gain this this enlightenment, to gain this power that people can tap into in creating this new divine energy. You're saying that understanding what's going on in the womb, the cycle, and tapping into that and riding that wave and understanding how to ride it. You're saying that that's a key, major key to
That's
tapping in that.
totally the key. It's a key to understanding the whole universe, right? The entire quantum field of the universe lies within the womb. There's like, if you think of an egg, right? Of within the egg, you have infinite possibility and darkness. And within the womb, it's a similar space. And as you come to understand the womb and all of its phases, you'll see that as above, so below. Everything is reflected in the Earth cycles, in the star cycles, in the moon cycles, in the planetary cycles, in the galaxy cycles, in the great year cycles. All of those cycles exist in a cycle of the womb. So if we can tap into the seasons of the womb and understand them at that level, hold on, I have to cough again. If we can understand them at that level, we have the capacity to understand the universe. And so I think it was Einstein's quote that said, the thing that's incomprehensible about the universe is that it's comprehensible, something to that degree. And what's crazy is before I even learned about the great year, which is the 24,000 year cycle of the yugas of Earth and human experience and consciousness, I already kind of understood that because of all the years that I've been tracking my cycle. And it made sense to me and clicked. I'm like, yeah, I knew this because of the understanding of the cycles of the womb that goes through 4 seasons. And that is the cycle of birth and death and birth and death of the 4 different phases that you can divide further into 8 phases, which is what occurs on the earth, right? 4 seasons, which a lot of cultures divide into 8 different Sabbats throughout the year. And each of those also correlates to the different phases of the moon, all of which are the birth and death cycle. And why we keep dying and birthing is the process of evolution, right? And so in order to understand how our bodies physically evolve, how our emotions evolve, how our psyche evolves, being able to live in tune with this cycle, understand how this cycle works, we thus understand at a greater capacity how the earth works, how our stars cycle, how the moon cycles, and our place within it all.
Wow. So,